Patricia there.
Thank you. Thank all of you. Lovely music, just being here in this beautiful church. My topic today is about being loved. And after hearing this resume of mine, whoever wrote it must have really loved me. It's like, whoa, who is this? But the truth of the matter is, being loved is the essence of spiritualism. It's the absolute essence of spiritualism, because that is why spirit connects with us from the other side of life. It's because of this tremendous amount of love that they are willing to cross the barriers to come to speak to our hearts. You know, at first when I started my development, I sat in a circle with 10 other ladies for about 10 years. I have to tell you straight away, I was a reluctant medium. For any of those of you studying, I'm with you. And I sat there and it's like, so what we're going to do, we're going to do this, right? We sat. And of course then the 10 of us would go out to lunch. I loved it. It was great. And after 10 years, we sat and we made this communion of spirit amongst all of us. So one of the people that was teaching at the center at that time was a man named Wong Choi. And a very Chinese man. And not very often do Chinese people invite you to their home. And he was a professor of numerology, so I was really excited to go visit him. And I went to his house. I met this gentleman named Raul. And after a while I decided, well, I'm not going to stay. And so I left the party. And I got back into my car, and no more than I was in my car, for the first time in my life, a spirit sat right next to me. And she says to me, this little old lady, I mean, I swear she must have been 4'11", 4'9", and she says, you have to go talk to Raul. Now, I had not been working as a platform medium. I hadn't been doing anything. I had just been sitting in a circle, and all of a sudden, I'm feeling like Whoopi Goldberg with this little lady. And she says, and I'm trying to drive my car, and she's like talking to me. And I said, listen, I don't know Raul. I just met him at the party. I mean, come on, Raul's from South America. I'm not really a very bold person in regards to this. I'm not going to go back. And so finally, I took a breath and I said, you get me Raul's phone number and I'll call him. Boom, she disappeared. I figured, oh yeah, I'm free. So I drive home, right, and I'm doing good, and I have my day the next day. And all of a sudden, 6 o'clock at night, I get a phone call from a friend of mine named Maria. And so I get on the phone, I'm standing there, I'm talking to Maria, and boom, the little lady shows up again. And I said, I made her a promise I would call if she got me the number. I said, Maria, by any chance whatsoever, do you have this guy Raul's phone number? She goes, oh yes I do. And I said, really? I wrote it down. I said, I'll call you back. So as I kept my promise, and I called Raul. And now, come on, here I'm thinking, I don't know this guy. What am I going to say to him? I'm a reluctant medium to begin with, and all these thoughts are going through my head. I said, Raul, I had a dream about you last night. Now, you got to understand, you know, I'm talking to a South American man, and I'm like really young, and, you know, and it's like, and I said, let me just tell you the dream. And in what I did, I said, I had this little lady who was like 4'11". She was dressed all in black. She came to me and she said, I had to call you, and she wanted me to talk to you. And he said, stop. And I said, what's wrong? He says, give me your address. Raul lived in Homestead, Florida. I was living in Hollywood, Florida. He made it to my house in 40 minutes. Now, I don't know how he did that. I mean, to me, I thought that was by location. And so we sat, I made him a cup of tea, we talked after he got there. And I just kept, you know, talking about the little old lady. I never did tell him that it wasn't a dream. But on the way out, he said, Patricia, I have to tell you something. I said, what, Raul? He said, I had a gun to my forehead when that phone call came. And that was my grandmother. And she stopped me from killing myself. Do you see what being loved means? How spirit can transcend, how they can come to this earth plane to intercept, to love us. I mean, being a grandmother myself, I understand I would go through hell and high water to come back to help my grandson. But you know, these are the reasons that we really are spiritualists. Because we know the essence of being loved from spirit and how they touch our soul. How they allow us to know that we are not alone on this earth plane. You know, so people say, okay, Patricia, what does it mean being loved? And I said, you've got to listen to this. It's being loved. It's not doing. You know, because there's some people say, oh, well, if I do this, that, and the other thing, I'm loved. You know, well, I took out the garbage, I love you. So it's like, okay, don't get me wrong, I think taking out the garbage is great. Or, you know, doing things for people is, but being loved has an intricate quality of listening, of being emotionally present, to be able to listen to not only what is inside ourselves, but being able to start to listen to spirit. Do you realize how magical that makes us? Mediumship is absolute. It's got to be considered magical. We are making the impossible possible. I really want you to think about it. The impossible. Now, can you imagine me telling another group of people that this deceased grandmother came from the other side of life to save her grandson when he had a gun to his forehead? I mean, that they would say, oh, Patricia, that's impossible. But it wasn't. But it was enough to make me understand this is why I was a medium. I didn't want to be. I thought, oh no, that is too scary. You're going to get up there? It is way, way too scary. But the truth of the matter is, when you're being loved, you're not scared. And I want you to think of those we love who have crossed over. They go from our love to the other side of life that's love. How amazing is that? How amazing is it that we have this gift of understanding? Recently, I had a friend of mine pass away. And I was in the Warm Springs, right, in Northport. And so I went from Warm Springs to Northport, and a girlfriend of mine that was traveling with me was a Baptist. And we went to go see my girlfriend's husband after she passed. It was the very day after she passed. So we walk into their place, and Mike looks at me and says, Irene's already been here. Now my girlfriend, the Baptist, is going like, what are you talking about? And as Mike spoke about his deceased wife, Irene, coming to him, letting him know how much he is being loved. Being loved. And that's why I wrote my book, Timeless Love. It took me on a search. But my girlfriend, who's been raised Baptist, said, "Thank you, Patricia, for taking me with you, because I got to see that Spirit loves us beyond this earth plane." And that's what we do as spiritualists. We allow the opportunity to know that we are being loved. We have the opportunity to transcend this physical reality, to allow Spirit in, to make us able to understand to the depth of who we are, what it is that we can share and be of service. You know, sometimes we don't understand. I didn't understand what I was really doing when I picked up that phone to call Raul. I had a clue. All I knew was that 10 years of sitting in service, that when that Spirit showed up, that was definitely real. That was definitely love coming to me to connect with love. I am very much involved in the children's program in Lilydale. It's been 14 years now. I've been working with the children there. And as I was sharing with my most generous hostess, Marilyn Autry, who is a brilliant teacher and generous soul, I got involved with this program because of my grandson. And why? Because here is a child that was putting his hand on my forehead and telling me to put my hand on his heart because he was going to send me healing. And I said to myself, okay, he knows this. It's inside of him. He is gifted at 5 years old to know the essence of the energy. And he says, "Grandma, some people will tell you energy, but actually it's love." Yes. 5-year-old. And at that time, I did have the First Spiritualist Church of South Florida. And at that time, I allowed my grandson to work as a healer. Because he knew at 5 years old that this is about love. So when I got to Lilydale, I said, "What do we have for the children?" And they would say, "Oh, we've got this and that," and they were supposed to have some pony rides or something like that, and it got canceled. And year after year it got canceled, and I said, okay, you either step up, and I'm going to invite all of you spiritualists to step up and do something. Because I knew that he needed to have other children he could talk to. How blessed are we to have a church where we have like-minded people, that we are able to communicate and say, "Oh, I had this dream. Oh, I felt this in my house. Oh, all these things happened to me." And how amazing that is. How amazing that is. So Bailey and I started, and I recognized the fact that yes, during Children's Week, it wasn't Children's Week, it was Children's a couple of days, and then I got 4 days, and then I got 5 days, and then I got finally 6. And 130 children are now attending this program. Why? Because it's not a babysitting service. It's about communing. It's about every parent. Come, join, be with your child. Why not? Because you need to listen, to understand, to be in love. And I can't begin to tell you how many parents say to me, "Oh, I wish they had classes like this when I was a kid." This year, we have all kinds of different classes. It's fun. It's joyous. It's making beautiful memories that these children will have for the rest of their life. This year, in fact, we're going to have, I call them the Illuminati. I mean, 14 years. I've got a whole slew of children that have graduated college. And do you know what they're doing? They're coming back to Lilydale to plant a time capsule. Because I have been told that they want to bury this time capsule so when their kids come back, they can bring it up and see what it is that we experienced as kids. You see, they've already planned this. Why? Because they're listening to Spirit. I mean, I don't know that I'm going to be hanging out in Lilydale in 30 years. Maybe I will, you know, which will be great. You know, I'll be 99. But it's like how much we can accomplish by listening, by allowing the love to come through, by understanding our principles, knowing that Spirit is going to touch our heart as long as we let them. And you know, when they talk about the children, let's face it, our religion was founded by children who listened. They heard. They knew. They knew. And that's the other beauty about it. It's like, come on, being an adult, there's too much of this da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da going on in the head. And you can't figure out what it is, who's saying what, unless you decide to use your breath and really meditate to still that mind of ours. And with that, we get to hear Spirit that can tell us or share with us. You know, the other thing is, I have to tell you a story about one of the kids' programs. So we had this one little girl, her name's Rachel, and we do a children's service. And the kids do the address, the whole thing. I mean, we have a chairman, we have message services, and so all the kids during the week, they can sign up and give messages, they can do healing, and so this one little girl, Rachel, comes in up, and she's talking to the other children, and she went and she says, I've got a lady here and with blonde hair, and she went over to this other child named Chloe. And Chloe's mom, 6 months prior, had been killed in a car accident. And so Rachel comes and says to her, your mom is here, and she wants you to know that she always loves you. And will you please be a nice girl? Well, sidebar here, Chloe could be a little difficult, okay? Well, that night at the talent show, Chloe comes up to me and goes, give me a hug! And I was like, oh wow. That little girl got touched by her mother for being loved. I mean, it's an impossible thing to think of what it is for a child to lose a parent, or, you know, to lose anybody. But here, by being loved. So when we think about by being loved, we ask our questions about, it isn't the doing. It's about allowing ourselves to be loved. It's by creating a space where we feel love. It's about loving ourselves first, so that we can allow the love to come in so that we can allow the love to be in our lives every day in every way. And if we can allow that, then we know beyond a shadow of the doubt that we are love. The heart understands and picks up. We have been given a gift beyond all words. I congratulate everyone who decides whether they work in healing or in mediumship for allowing themselves to be loved. Thank you.